Vandeham Shigaro Shiyuta Parakamalam Shigarum Vaishnavamscha Shirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashubhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapa Tribhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 1, The Advent of Lord Krishna, the Introduction, text number 65. Rishira Vinira Game Kangso Yadun Matva Suraniti Devakya Garba Sambhutam Vishnum cha swavadam prati Rishira vinirgame kangso Yadun matva suraniti Devakya garba sambhutam Vishnum cha swavadam vidam prati Ladies, go ahead. Rishi of the great sage Narada, Vinirgame, on the departure, after giving information, Kangsa, Yadun, all the members of the Yadu dynasty, Matva, thinking of, Suran, as demigods, iti, thus, Devakya of Devaki, Garbhasambhutam, the children born from the womb, Vishnu, accepting as Vishnu, Cha, and Swavadam, fearing his own death from Vishnu. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. After the departure of the great Saint Narada, Kamsa thought that all the members of the Yadu dynasty were demigods, that any of the children born from the womb of Devaki might be Vishnu. Fearing his death, Kamsa arrested Vasudeva and Devaki and chained them with iron shackles. Suspecting each of the children to be Vishnu, Kamsa killed them one after another because of this prophecy that Vishnu would kill him. Please repeat. After the departure of the great Saint Narada, Kamsa thought that all the members of the Yadu dynasty were demigods, and that any of the children born from the womb of Devaki might be Vishnu. Fearing his death, Kamsa arrested Vasudeva and Devaki and chained them with iron shackles, suspecting each of the children to be Vishnu. Kamsa killed them one after another because of the prophecy that Vishnu would kill him. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami in his notes on this verse has mentioned how Narada Muni gave Kamsa this information. This incident is described in the Hare Vamsa. Narada Muni went to see Kamsa by providence, and Kamsa received him very well. Narada therefore informed him that any one of the sons of Devaki might be Vishnu. Because Vishnu was to kill him, Kamsa should not spare any of Devaki's children. Narada Muni advised. Narada's intention was that Kamsa, by killing the children, would increase his sinful activities so that Krishna would soon appear to kill him. Upon receiving the instructions of Narada Muni, Kamsa killed all the children of Devaki one after another. The word Ajana Sankaya indicates that Lord Vishnu never takes birth Ajana, and that he therefore appeared as Krishna, taking birth just like a human being. Manushim tanam ashrityam. Kamsa attempted to kill all the babies born of Devaki and Vasudeva, although he knew that if Vishnu were born, he would not be killed. Actually, it came to pass that when Vishnu appeared as Krishna, Kamsa could not kill him. Rather, as foretold, it was he who killed Kamsa. One should know in truth how Krishna, who takes his birth transcendently, gets to kill the demons, but is never killed. When one perfectly understands Krishna in this way, through the medium of Shastra, one becomes immortal. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma chame divyam, evam yoveti tatvataha, tyaktva deham parar janma, naiti imam eti sarjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, or Arjuna. So the verse again. After the departure of the great Saint Narada, Kamsa thought that all the members of the Yadu dynasty were demigods, and that any of the children born from the womb of Devaki might be Vishnu. Fearing his death, Kamsa arrested Vasudeva and Devaki and chained them with iron shackles, suspecting each of the children to be Vishnu. Kamsa killed them one after another because of the prophecy that Vishnu would kill him. Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tiramane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskatyade Satarna. Well, here we find a very simple way of going back to the spiritual world. Janma karma chenme divyam evam yo veti tattvataha. Tat actually means that. So if you want to learn any Sanskrit word, tat is very simple if you know English, because you just add an H to that, to tat, and you get that, and that's what tat means, that. And that means something that you can actually point out, just like we could say, that wall over there, that wall, that. Something is observable, something that's perceivable is a tat. And tva means that a collection of things that are perceivable, to observable, experimental, or it can be experienced. So Janma, the birth of Krishna, and karma, Krishna's activities, are divyam, are divine. So it seems pretty easy. We just have to understand how Krishna's birth and activities are divine by experience, and then we can go back to the spiritual world. Well, yes, but it's not so easy to understand how Krishna's birth and activities are divine. One has to be on the transcendental platform to experience, first of all, Krishna, which is Krishna's form, Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's associates, and then one can experience Krishna's pastimes. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, what does he say? That's not right. Yesham. Yesham antitam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanva mohonir vakva bhajante mam drita vrataha. Yesham antikatam papam. One who's given up all yesham antikatam papam. One who's given up all sinful activities. Yesham antikatam papam jananam punya karmanam. Who's only engaged in pious activites. Te dvanva mohonir mukva. Who's free from all duality, all illusion. They can serve Krishna with determination. Not so easy. First of all, as soon as we forget Krishna, our activities are, to one degree or another, sinful. Because sinful doesn't mean only the person who's in the slaughterhouse killing animals. Obviously they're sinful, or people taking intoxication. But sinful means anyone who's covered by illusion. That anyone who's covered by illusion, anyone who is identifying with the material body, experiences the pinching of the material energy called lust. And when lust develops, it becomes greed. And when greed develops, it becomes anger. Therefore, Krishna says, Trividam narakasyedam dvaram nashitamatmanaha. Trividan Arakasyedam Dwaram Nashitam Atmana Kama Krodha Tata Lobas Tasmat Etam Trayam Jajet. That there are three gates leading to hell. In case you want to go to hell, there are three gates, and you can enter it any way you want. If you like lust, then lust will bring you one way to hell. And if you think, well, lust is not very good, as many people think, oh, this person's too lusty, but we admire greedy people. If you expand your lust enough, you'll become greedy. Just like if you like one ice cream cone, say strawberry, and you eat the ice cream cone, and you want another one. And then another one. And as long as you have enough money and there's space, then you can get another one. So this is called greedy. The first ice cream cone tasted great, but after that, it's just greed. Just the idea of eating ice cream. And if you don't like greed, you think, well, lust is bad, greed is bad, but anger is just justified. If I feel frustrated and I feel angry, this is just my personality, it's my nature. I'm a victim, I should be angry, I should get revenge. I should curse them. Just like the vulture flying over the cow, cursing the cow to die so that the vulture could eat the cow. Of course, the curse of the vulture has no effect. The cow is just as healthy. The vulture is getting sick by having bad feelings towards the cow. So these are the three gates leading to hell. And in the absence of Krishna consciousness, when these are unchecked, then it turns into illusion, as we find out. So if we want to find out if we're affected by lust or anger or greed, we just have to see, do I identify myself with this body in some way or another, either grossly or subtly? If yes, unfortunately we're still under illusion. Now worse than being under illusion is to claim that we're not under illusion. It's bad enough to be an illusion, but if we think we claim or we try to justify, I'm not under illusion, I'm a good person, I'm a devotee, then that's worse, because then you can't get out of illusion. If you don't think you're an illusion, then how can you get out of it? If you're thinking what you're experiencing is reality, which is what the sahajiyas are doing, then there's no way of getting out of the illusion because you think it's real. They think that what is actually real, they think that's illusion. And what's actually illusory, they think is real. And in order to help one remain in illusion, then one forgets what actually the standard reality is. One cannot remember that he's an illusion because he doesn't know what the standard reality is. That's called forgetfulness. And when we forget what the standard reality is, then we lose our intelligence to get out of illusion. And then the result is that one continually cycles in the repeated birth and death, because everything one does is out of illusion and forgetfulness and loss of intelligence. And simply one increases one's lust, anger, and greed. So that's material existence. Now, if we recognize that we're an illusion, then we may try to read these books to get out of illusion. So we can remember something enough to use our intelligence to do something to get out of illusion. Otherwise, one is lost in the material energy. So, if we're not realizing our position, then we remain in the material existence perpetually. So the beginning of that is janma karma yesham antakatam papam. So the beginning is sinful activity. Therefore, illicit sex, gambling, meat eating, intoxication, this is what keep everyone in the material world because they appear to be very nice. Like when Prabhupada was giving initiation one time, at the time of initiation, he asked the devotee, he said, what are the four regular principles? And the devotee told the four regular principles, and then Prabhupada playfully asked, which one do you like the most? So this is material, so-called material enjoyment. It's called, as Prahlad Maharaj said, yan maitunaidi grihimedi sukham hitu cham kanduyavat eva victorio eva dukkha dukkam, like scratching an itch. If one scratches an itch, there's certainly happiness, but it's not very much happiness. But if you just allow the scratch or the itch to go on, after a while it'll go away. But there's more happiness if you scratch it, because then you feel immediate relief and you think, oh, this is happiness. So the material world is just like scratching an itch, and people love it. They think it's fantastic that this is the happiness, and therefore they won't give it up. But if one realizes that this itching sensation is not very nice, that I should stop scratching it, or else I'll get into trouble. So this is the beginning of religious life. Stop scratching the itch. So this is the beginning of getting out of material existence, is tolerance. When Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, we're not the body. So Arjuna said, yes, I'm not the body, but after all, it's my relatives I'm going to kill. I mean, it's not very nice to kill your relatives. So Krishna agreed with him. He didn't tell Arjuna, you're in Maya, just go and kill, be happy about it. He said, yes, it's going to be very unpleasant to kill your relatives, but be tolerant. There's so many things in the material world that are unpleasant. You have to tolerate, and don't be disturbed, because that's the nature of the material world. One moment, things seem very nice, and the next moment they'll seem terrible. There's no one in the material world who has all the time everything favorably happening to them. That's the nature of material existence. It's one moment we're optimistic, and the next moment the sky's falling. But tolerate, and don't be disturbed, because it's not actually yourself. It's the external body and mind which you're experiencing that are going through this so-called suffering. So if one learns to tolerate, that's called religious life. And as a result of religious life is that one becomes peaceful, becomes merciful, austere, clean, and truthful. Something which is considered abominable nowadays. If children in a Gurukul and they're being taught to be austere, people think that this is child abuse. Why is this child taking not a warm shower and a bath with a rubber ducky? Why is he taking a shower, cold shower, eating on the floor? This is abominable. Eating they're eating with their fingers. Could you imagine that? They're probably so hungry they'll eat their fingers too. So people think that this is horrible, following these principles. This is the worst thing that you can do. No illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, no meat eating, no protein. But if one can actually tolerate these things, then there's some possibility of actually becoming a little peaceful, not running after the unbridled senses. Whatever they're dictating, I must do immediately. Then one can actually become a little regulated in one's life and a little bit aware of what the actual benefit of living in the material world is. It's in such a way as that one can live here peacefully. That is, as fresh air actually has some value in the material world. Clean water actually has some value. Fresh food has some value. Nice relationships with people also has a value. These things are considered to be not so valuable amongst a certain kind of people. It doesn't really matter if the water is clean, if the food is pure, if the air is clean. They don't really care, or if they have nice relationships. I just want to enjoy scratching the itching that I have. But if one can come to that platform of understanding how to live in the material world and actually find it as pleasant as possible here without creating unnecessary disturbance. Therefore, as I said the other day, cow protection was essential because only by protecting cows can you actually have pure water. Why is the water impure? Because the innumerable chemicals that are being put into the water due to the fact that they've created all these machines to do the work of the cow. That cow or the bull plowing the earth is such a perfect machine that it takes them 1,000 machines to duplicate what that cow and bull are doing. And therefore they need all this chemicals, petrochemical industry, in order to run the machines, create the machines, eliminate the machines, dispose of the machines. All these chemicals are necessary. And what happens to the chemicals? They don't magically disappear. They go into the water, and we drink them. And of course, because they're killing the bull, they become more and more sinful, more and more covered over, and therefore they get sick. What to speak of the birth control pills and everything, they all get into the water, and that's what we drink. How advanced. So clean water, fresh air. It said that in Tokyo, which was the first city in the world where they started to have, you have to pay in Tokyo to buy oxygen sometimes. The air is so polluted you can't breathe, and so on the street they sell oxygen. I had personal experience that when I was in Manila in the Philippines for 6 months, and we'd go to the university, that on the way there the air was so polluted that some of the devotees who were driving around on the highway sometimes, they'd come back and they'd cough up big balls of sludge. So this is called advancement. So, but if one can protect the cow, then we don't need these chemicals, we don't need the industry, we can have pure water, fresh air. And even the houses that we live in, now because of the necessity to work day and night in order to just live in a small little hut, and therefore they need so much electricity because they're working so long, when they finally get home, they don't want to go to sleep. They want to do something. So they need electricity to keep everyone awake. And as a matter of fact, the electricity beaming through the walls, even these walls, keep everyone awake except for the devotees who go to sleep in any circumstance. But if one can actually live in a pure atmosphere, as pure as possible, of course the devotees are preaching, so they may stay awake and read Prabhupada's books at night, whatever. But if one can live like, then the next stage is tolerance. Tolerance of not only the bad, what we consider bad, which is sinful, the pushing of the material senses, the agitation of lust, anger, greed, and illusion, which we consider bad, which people think is great. They think this is life. The more people they think, anyhow, and the good, which is nice air, pure water, fresh food, nice relationships with people, like in Vrindavan, all based upon cow protection and people protection too. I mean, the Vedic culture has not only protected the cows, they protected the women, they protected the old people, they protected the sick. Everyone was protected. Now, no one's protected from themselves or from anyone else. Anyhow, if one can tolerate that, then one can remain steady. So first is following religious principles, then acting piously, then tolerating sinful reactions. In other words, even when we're living a pure life, still there's going to be problems. Even in Vrindavan, when Krishna was here, Aristasura came into the village, and he just bellowed. Risasura was a bull demon. He just roared loudly, and the ladies there had miscarriages. So you think, well, Krishna was there. How is it possible, Vrindavan? Finally, I've taken birth in the womb of a mother in Vrindavan, and some demon comes and I'm dead. That in Vrindavan there's problems. What to speak of our Ljubljana? One has to tolerate. It has to go on undisturbed. And then one can actually accept the path of devotion. One can actually perform one's activities with real devotion, with not some material motivation, either to avoid bad things or to get good things, whatever we estimate them to be. Then one can actually accept real devotional service and rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, if we act purely in pure devotional service without attachment to an aversion, then the result is that gradually our heart becomes purified and we can begin to experience what Krishna is actually like, what it's actually like to have a spiritual experience. Then one can meditate entranced upon the personality of Godhead. When one's heart is purified, then one can actually experience Krishna directly, like Dhruva Maharaj did. And the result is one can actually experience Krishna in truth, as he actually is, the all-attractive, loving Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's called Janma Karma Chame Divyam. One is actually directly experiencing Krishna. Then one doesn't have to take birth again. So right now, if we want to know if we're eligible to go back to the spiritual world, if we leave our body at this present moment, we just have to see, am I seeing Krishna directly in front of me, everywhere, all the time? Am I always in ecstasy, free from any hankering lamentation, completely aware of everyone and everything in relationship to Krishna? Am I situated in my spiritual identity, which has been completely realized, having no other business than serve Krishna? Then yes, a Vaikuntha airplane will come and take you back to the spiritual world. If not, then we may have a little bit more practicing to do before we get there. That's all right, because eventually we will get there if we follow the process. Yesham antikatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohanirmuktva bhajante mam drita vrataha. If we do it with some determination, develop that determination, we will get there. But we shouldn't think we're there when we're not there. Now, luckily, Krishna's pastimes are such that they're interesting. Otherwise, if Krishna came, killed all the demons, and everyone surrendered to Krishna and went back to the spiritual world, it wouldn't be very interesting. The fact that Krishna comes and Kamsa is trying to kill him and winds up killing little babies sounds more normal. This is what happens every day around here. It makes it more believable that actually this Kamsa, he gets his opportunity to do all kinds of nefarious activities. And of course, it's all under the laws of karma, because Devaki's children were not ordinary children. They were formerly sons of Hiranyakashipu. And before that, they were sons of Marichi, who looked upon Lord Brahma would discuss when Brahma was chasing after his daughter in the form of a stag, of a deer, and they felt that Brahma had done something wrong. So it's an example of your superior, like Brahma, does something wrong, it's not a good idea to criticize him, because you may wind up in a difficult situation. In any case, they did that, and they wound up in the body of in the sons of Hiranyakashipu, then they wound up in the sons of Devaki, and were killed one after another for their own benefit, because then they were reinstated in the heavenly planets again after becoming purified. As we found out later on, that Devaki had, before Krishna left for Vrindavan, the Devaki had breastfed him, and therefore her breast milk became transcendental. And when Krishna was in the house of Sandipani Muni, as a student, Sandipani Muni's wife asked for the benediction, and Krishna brought their son back from Yamaraj, from the hellish planets. He brought her son back. And then when Devaki heard about this, she asked Krishna to bring back her children too, which Krishna went and brought back all of Devaki's children who had been killed, and they were all in the form of little babies. So she got the chance to breastfeed them, and because her breasts had been touched by Krishna, her milk was transcendental, and they all drank the milk, became pure devotees, and went back to the heavenly planets. So it's not as bad as we think it is. These poor little babies, this is Krishna's pastimes. He gets them killed one after another. How unfeeling. He waits for him to appear but he has his brothers, his poor brothers appear before him. They all get slaughtered by Kamsa, this demon. Krishna could appear 6 years earlier, 7 years earlier, killed Kamsa and saved his brothers, but instead he has them killed one after another. But actually his brothers represent lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, madness, and they have to be killed before Krishna can appear. And when Krishna does appear, then all these things are purified and everyone lives happily ever after in reality. This is really the story of happily ever after. How romantic. So therefore we have to understand these things by taking to the process, and gradually these pastimes will be revealed to us. And when we read these pastimes, we'll actually be able to relish them and appreciate how kind Krishna is, how nice he is, how perfect they are, how it was good for Kamsa to do what he was doing, because he got the chance to have Krishna personally embrace him. Could you imagine if someone said, Krishna is going to come and he's going to jump on your chest and give you some nice feeling, few pats on the back. Wouldn't that be nice to have that? So Kamsa, he actually had Krishna personally embrace him, beat on his chest a little bit. Of course, it cost him his life, but he also got liberation. So Kamsa was good. Krishna wouldn't have come if Kamsa wasn't such a demon. And get Krishna's personal association. So Kamsa was benefited. These children were benefited. Devaki was benefited. Everyone's benefited. And if we read these stories, we'll also be benefited. So that just reminds me of the story of Simply Wonderfuls. There was only one suite in ISKCON, as you probably know, at the beginning. It wasn't very sophisticated cooking. Prabhupada taught at the beginning to make very simple things like dal, rice, and chapatis. And there were no sweets except for gulab-jamins. Prabhupada knew how to make gulab-jamins, so he'd make gulab-jamins, and he'd make a lot of them because that was the only thing that kept some of the devotees in the movement, was the gulab-jamins. He had a jar of gulab-jamins at the storefront, and if anyone felt a little disturbed, they'd go and get a gulab-jamin. That would ease their mind. So there was one sweet that devotees found out was called Simply Wonderfuls. Simply Wonderfuls, the magic formula came from a carnation package, carnation powdered milk, the secret formula for Simply Wonderfuls. It was made out of carnation powdered milk, equal amounts of powdered sugar and butter. And sometimes they put raisins in it to make it a little bit more opulent. And that was the only sweet. So the devotees didn't know if it was bona fide because they didn't know if carnation powdered milk was bona fide as a sacred ingredient in the Simply Wonderfuls. They didn't read about it in the Vedas. Carnation milk, Krishna enjoyed, powdered milk. So they asked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada, he used to eat Simply Wonderful also. So he said, yes. He said, the devotees are simply wonderful. Your Krishna is simply wonderful. This process is simply wonderful. And you're all simply wonderful. So if you keep on eating Simply Wonderfuls, then everything will be simply wonderful. So then devotees understood it was bona fide Simply Wonderfuls, and they kept on eating Simply Wonderfuls. So everything in these books are simply wonderful, and we keep on reading them, then we'll also become simply wonderful. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hare. Wow. Any questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna. I'm thinking about this. Sandipani Muni, his son was, Krishna brought back his son from hellish planet. So I'm just thinking, because he's spiritual master of Krishna, how come his son is in the hellish planet?
I don't know. I don't know if it exactly explained how he wound up there, but somehow or another, it's part of Krishna's pastimes. I'm not even so sure exactly who his son was, Sandipani Muni's son. I heard it was Madhu Mangal, but I'm not really 100% sure either, if that's correct. In any case, somehow or another, that's Krishna's pastimes. I can't give you an explanation. If you find out, you can let me know. A lot of things I don't know. Anything else? Yes.
You spoke about tolerance, and we see these days that not very rarely, I would dare to say, tolerance leads to abuse, both mental and physical. So the question is, when is the time to put a stop to it and say, okay, I tolerate it, but this is not right to tolerate some abuse?
Well, abuse, tolerant, that takes intelligence to figure out. But generally speaking, we tolerate and we go on with our service unless something's going to interfere with our service to Krishna. That may not be a proper time to tolerate. That if our devotional service is going to be impeded, then we have to do something to make sure that our devotional service goes on uninterrupted. As far as other things, that depends upon our spiritual advancement. Obviously, the great sages were able to tolerate more than we can tolerate. And therefore, it's an individual decision to see how much we can actually tolerate before we have to do something to counteract the situation that we're under. Because we may not be as great as the great sages in toleration. On the other hand, if we act impulsively, then it may not help us because we may find ourselves in a worse situation before and have to tolerate even more. So we also have to use our intelligence to see when it's and act in terms of what Krishna wants us to do, so that we don't have to go on trying to become tolerate by increasing the difficulty of the situation we're under. Therefore, when we decide I can no longer tolerate, it should be on behalf of Krishna. We do it. And then Krishna will arrange it in such ways that we may be able to fulfill his purpose better, and at the same time we may not increase the amount of tolerance we'll need for the next situation we're faced with. So we should be able to solve the problem that's giving us the problem, the situation that's giving us the problem, and so we don't have to go and increasingly test ourselves in toleration and increasingly fail the test and become more and more intolerant instead of becoming more and more tolerant.
Can I add a follow-up? For some devotees, sometimes they are given by the other devotees more to carry that they can tolerate, and it can lead to them leaving the process instead of being taken care of and continuing and getting to the stage where they can tolerate more. What's to do in this situation?
Our authority is, ultimate authority is Prabhupada and his instructions. So we should become familiar with Prabhupada's instructions and judge things according to Krishna and the pure devotees, their instructions, rather than some relative personalities. And that's our decision, to see how to arrange our lives to become Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada wanted the ISKCON to be exemplary in following the instructions of the previous acharyas, coming through his instructions, so that we can find ourselves in a situation where we can most easily, as possible, follow the instructions, especially chanting 16 rounds, following the principles, and becoming Krishna conscious by the 5 powerful activities, like hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, worshipping the deities, living in a holy place, and serving the devotees. So that's what ISKCON is meant for, to make these the prominent things in the activities, and that by doing so we'll make the maximum amount of spiritual advancement. But if somehow or another these 5 activities are minimized, and that we're not given the opportunity to participate in them to the extent that will actually increase our Krishna consciousness, then we should go to some place where there is these 5 activities going on, and I have the best opportunity to become Krishna conscious. But if we don't value these 5 activities, these powerful activities, and go to a place, make our arrangements so that we can participate in them as much as possible, then that's our problem, because we haven't really understood what this movement is supposed to be all about. Anything else? Kwala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande Haribol.